Hello, students. Been a while, hasn't it? Well, I hope this first communication here, beyond text, finds you well. Now, I want to talk about the assignment for April 8 and April 9. It's going to be there in Google Classroom. So you'll navigate to Google Classroom, of course, and then click on the classwork pane. And you'll see it there under the distance learning topic called Virtual Solubility Lab. So clicking on the assignment to go into the assignment, that's going to have three links. The first one here in the upper left is the link to the actual website where the virtual lab is housed. This right here is kind of a little how-to video to kind of walk you through what's going on with the virtual lab, although this video will do the same thing. And then this one is for the Google Doc of the lab that you can fill in directly and turn in that way. I would recommend printing it out, filling in the data table as you go through the lab so you don't have to click back and forth so much. And then just get those numbers transferred into the data table before turning the Google Doc back into me. So let's see what's going on with this. So then here we do have the website for the virtual lab. Clicking on the link here under this description where it says introductory video and support information, that was this link right here. And then we have our Google Doc, of course. The Google Doc of the lab has the procedure, carefully following it. And of course, it's going to have the procedures designed, meant to get it across as to what you're to do within the actual manipulation of the virtual lab materials. But on the second page, we do have our data table that kind of summarizes the data we're collecting for 3 different salts. We're going to be recording grams remaining. We'll need to calculate grams dissolved for each of the 3 salts at these different temperatures there. So 11 different temperatures ranging from 0 degrees Celsius all the way up to 100 degrees Celsius. And then we have questions that are there, 3 of them at the bottom after the data table. All right, let's go take a look at what's going on here with the procedure. Basically, it talks about how we manipulate things, where things are located, chemicals and supplies. We're going to be manipulating a little bit with the menu, playing with temperature and stuff like that. So let's get over there. So then when we're adding the different salts, KCl, potassium chloride, that's one of them. You can see that we're active in the stockroom and solutions is picked. So we pick on that. So KCl is in there. We also are going to make use of K2Cr2O7. So I click on that and add that to the workbench. And also KClO3. So each of those 3 salts. In addition to that, we need 3 of these 100 milliliter distilled H2O. So 1, 2, 3. Procedure states that you should get these flasks in a row, kind of spread them out a little bit, otherwise they can kind of overlay each other and kind of mess with things there. It talks about renaming the flasks. So to do that, you would right click or 2-finger touch on a mouse trackpad if you're on your Chromebook, and then rename. And then renaming it to what the procedure states, 85G KCl in 100 GH2O. I'd recommend getting a copy of that because you'll be renaming the other ones and then it's just a little less text to type. So I got that renamed, so I know this is my KCl one. I need to get this filled with some KCl. So right now, taking that KCl, clicking and dragging it over to that flask, letting go, and this window pops up. Here there's just different ways to kind of put it in. You can play with that, but we want 85 grams in there. And the precise tab is going to allow us to get there pretty easily. Once you get that 85 in there, clicking on pour. And then it adds that, and we see some change that's occurring now. We don't need that window anymore, so we can close that. See how my flask moved a bit? So then you're going to do that same thing, renaming the second and the third flasks for K2 Cr2O7 and KClO3, and adding 85 grams of each of those to their respective flasks. You notice there was a drop in temperature, and there's some questions that ask about what's going on with temperature. So take a peek at those so you can know what to look for when you do it the first time. Otherwise, it could be done again without much difficulty. Um, but when that temperature stabilizes, it looks pretty good. Over here, it changes from blue to more of like a yellow color. It's going to be there pretty soon when it gets to 24 or so degrees. And by the time you get to the second and the third one, the first one is going to be stabilizing. And then it should be ready by the time you do all three. Now we want to make sure we're on the right one, so I would click on the KCl's flask. We can see the little square box around it. I would go over here to Edit. Clicking on Edit, I want to go down to Thermal Properties. What we want to do is see what's going on with the amount of grams that is going to be left undissolved based on temperature. We want to insulate it, and we'll put our temperature in there, 0 degrees, and then say OK. Checking that insulated from surroundings box makes it so it's not going to warm up at all. We saw it change temperature and then it went back to room temperature, but now it's going to stay there. But right here, this is the number we need underneath species, KCl, and grams. This 56, we can round it, 0.13. Now that value, 56.13, is going to go in the spot for 0 degrees Celsius and KCl for grams remaining. So right here, 56.13 is where I would put that value. Then I would want to change the temperature to 10 degrees. So we go back, it's selected for that flask, go to Edit, Thermal Properties, insulated from surroundings is still checked. I put in 10 and I click OK. And then we have a change here. It was 56.13 or so, but now it looks like we got 53.40 when we round to the nearest hundredths place. So 53.40 is the mass of the salt that's left undissolved. Ultimately, though, it is important for grams dissolved, so how much salt can the water actually dissolve in that 100 grams of water. And all we would do is, as the procedure states, take 85 minus that 56.13, and then we would get from that 28.87. And we get that. We would continue that process for all of the 11 temperatures for each of those three salts. If there are any questions, of course, comments via Google Classroom, questions, comments via email, and we'll talk soon.